Are we on? Hello. Anybody there? Yes, we're on. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. How are we? What are we? December. We're in December. It's December now. Oh my God. How's your week been, guys? How are you? It's been feels like quite a week round here. All right, I'm going to pull Nadine in a sec. I'm just going to let people gather just because, that's what you do, isn't it, of an evening? You don't say you'll start at 8, then you start on the dot of 8. You open the doors at 8, you let people gather, and then they sit down. So a couple of minutes while Anyone else joining? Yes? Anybody else joining? Here we go. Hi guys, Depresh mode. Hello from Peru, loving the beard. Yes, the reason there's a beard because my beard clippers are in Wales and I didn't want to go and buy another pair of beard clippers. It seemed like a real waste. So the kids have of course told me that my hair doesn't match my beard, and they've let it be known very, very strongly that this is not a strong look. This is not a good look, but what do I care? I don't know. Maybe I should care more. I should do, really, yes. Hi, everybody. Okay, the usual gang. Love from Brazil. Mike Lowry. Greetings from South Wales. Hello from Brazil again. Cool. Philadelphia. Ah, people are so kind, yeah. Now they're laughing. Wicked. I got every song on In Rainbows in my top 10 Spotify stats. Wow. Yeah, isn't it weird? We all got our Spotify stats this week. Mine was, it was weird. Mine was, Laura Marling was near the top because I started listening to that back in April. Nadine's record, which is an extraordinary work, and maybe we'll talk about it, but I don't want to be a music journalist. It's called Kitchen Sink. And of those of you who don't know Nadine Shah, Kitchen Sink, and this is not a shameless plug because she's coming on, it's because I think it's a fantastic work. And I'm going to get it on vinyl. I'm making that move from streaming to vinyl, which means it's a commitment because I love it already. All right, okay. Someone says there as well. Yeah, Moses Sumney's record was up there as well. That's right. His record was up there because again, Grey came out in February or something like that. He did it. If anyone checked out, he did an amazing performance on the Soul Train Awards. That guy is extraordinarily good as well. Love him. And what an astonishing physical presence as well. I mean, the man is he's like a beautiful kind of, how would I describe it? I mean, he's statuesque. Absolutely, that's the perfect word. Yes. All right. Okay. I've enough of my waffling. I need to connect with Nadine. So I'm going to do this, and there we go. I'm going to do this. Send a request. I love technology. Waiting, connecting. Hey, Nadine.
Hello, beauty. I like the beard.
Do you like it?
I think it.
Are you sure? Because are you just being nice? Because listen, I've got this thing now. Like at my age, I've got it's gone white here, and then I've got these dark bits here. So it's gradually going white. So I don't know.
It's a very distinguished, strong look.
Okay, I'll take that from you. I will definitely take that from you.
I shaved especially for this occasion.
Oh, and you look beautiful, may I say.
Thank you.
The kids, I will take you every day over my kids. My kids can have no kind of part in what I look like. I will defer to you from now on.
Yeah, wise.
Yeah. So how are you doing? How's your day?
I'm all right. All right. I'm kind of blessed to be living where I am right now. I left London just before lockdown.
Yeah.
It's like I knew it was going to happen. I came and joined my boyfriend, my partner, in Ramsgate. It's on the South Kent coast near
Yeah.
Margate,
Yeah.
and we're just like a 30-second walk away from the beach.
Oh,
And I've
wow.
got the sea in my veins because I grew up in a seaside town in the northeast of England,
Yeah.
and it has just been the best thing for me.
Yeah.
Um,
You got that East Coast thing as well, right? Because I think that there's a real difference in Britain between the East Coast and the West Coast, right?
Massive.
You got the North Sea in your veins.
Yeah, well, my mum and dad's house is a little place called Whitburn, which is kind of, it doesn't really know what it is. It's not, it's definitely not Sunderland. It won't call itself Sunderland. Um,
Is that to the Whitburnians? Is that some kind of local insult if you say,
oh
"Are
yeah,
you from Sunderland?"
they don't like that. They don't like that. And
Especially from some southerner like me, or who would probably go, "Are you from Newcastle?"
I never know what to say. It just depends. Like whatever you want, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
Newcastle, Sunderland, whatever. It's South Shields, really. It's South Shields.
Yeah.
But their house is on the cliff tops,
Wow.
and it overlook. It's just beautiful, and I've grown up with that being my garden, and I never really. I think I must have taken it for granted, quite because you just see it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's there, and it was only when I moved to London, and I was about 17, and I'd go back and visit, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You guys really picked a beautiful piece of the world. And I was very angry at them for years. Like, why can't you have a house in London? Why couldn't you my life would be a lot easier if you had a house in London. And I'm so appreciative that they chose that spot of the world. It's gorgeous. And I think, yeah, I've kind of followed in their footsteps going for a seaside town myself.
Can you paint a picture of it? Was it like, because, so Whitburn, you're on top of the cliffs. Is that, so it's rural? You're not like, I mean, are there a few houses or what? Like, is it you part in a city, or is it like a village or a small, what is it?
Well, if you like, when you look out, if you close
Yeah.
your right eye, you cannot see Sunderland. it's like you could be anywhere. You look out, you're like, so beautiful, and you open your eye out. There's Sunderland. There's Sunderland. It's like a cul-de-sac they live in.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. It's called. I think it's now been named Millionaires Row. But I mean, they're definitely not £1 million houses. They're not £1 million houses, but they're beautiful houses, and they're all really different looking. Ours was designed by some fella in the very early 70s, and it's like all glass on one side.
Wow.
But be very aware of that when it's dark outside and you have the lights on, you're running around. I don't know, whatever you're doing, you must be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Every house is different. Every house is different, and it was full of older couples that lived there. And recently, what's happened is younger couples have, I don't know what it is. Maybe people are reconnecting with nature like they didn't before. But lots of young couples have bought houses there, demolished them, and built these gorgeous, massive ones. And ours is one of the only ones which is untouched for years. It's a bit like. Have you seen that film? Well, you've got kids. Have you seen the film Up?
Oh, I love Up. I love that.
Yeah,
is that the house with the balloons?
Ours is a bit, yeah, ours is a bit like the Up house because it hasn't been touched for years. But it's beautiful. It's lovely.
So is it? So I'm imagining. So it's like you've got. So you go to. Did you go to school in Sunderland?
No, I wish.
Oh right.
I wish. It turns out there's a school in the kind of estate that we live in this cul-de-sac. There's a brilliant comprehensive school there called Whitburn Comp. And it got amazing grades and all these accolades and all the rest of it. It would have taken me all of 20 seconds to walk there every morning. But my parents sent me to a private school in Newcastle. My dad came over from Pakistan years ago, and, I think he wanted me to go to the best school possible and whatever money could buy and all the rest of it. And, and it was a great school, but I didn't actually do as well as Whitburn Comp.
Yeah.
And it meant travelling to school took an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. So I remember my memories of going to school, I was knackered. I was, little people, just these little tired eyes.
I know. I kind of had a similar experience. We didn't. Well, my parents, I went to a private school in Oxford, and it's interesting what you said that about your dad, because my family, so the dominant theme is probably the Irish side. And so my grandfather came over in the war, and there wasn't any money, but it was all about education. So my dad was privately educated at a terrible Catholic school outside Reading, which was awful. But the parents thought that this is, if we got to give up what they considered the best education. And I'm not saying that, and often private school is not the best education, but that is the perception is sometimes by that generation that you pay for something, you get it. But I think that's a really strong, I don't know. My father, even before Tony Blair was saying it, when I was growing up, he was always going, education, education, education.
I love that.
Before Tony Blair and that lot.
Before Tony Blair.
Before Tony Blair. But it's, yeah, it was, and we had to travel. We're not an hour and a half, but it is hard, and it's, you know, it's fun. Did you feel, okay, so this is interesting in the private school thing. So for years, I felt really sort of, well, listen, when you're in a band and you've been to private school and you're trying to get signed at the beginning of the 90s, it was, you know, I remember we had a meeting with some guy from Polydor, and he was a Mancunian, and he was obviously, and I'd been at university in Manchester, and I was sort of, and he was like, hey, what's your manifesto, boys? I'm like, all right, you know. Hey, you got to be like the Roses and the Mondays. You got to have fucking something to say for yourself. And I'm like, I think we were like, oh shit, this is, and so we were like demonized, probably because where we came from, we didn't have our shit together. Because also it was fairly obvious we'd been to sort of a minor private school, and yeah, and for years I sort of, I don't know, I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. But now I'm kind of like, whatever. It's like that Bob Marley thing. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at, right? And you got enough friends who didn't have the same experience. You go to university, and most people haven't had that, you know. And I'm actually, do you know what? I found that place where I'm actually quite thankful I've been there, because I had Oxford is kind of, you know, because like all these things are nuanced, aren't they? So maybe the private school that I went to when I was from 13 to 18 was like a grammar school. So it was kind of like we were in between 3 comprehensives, and the currency of the times was not, it was how hard you were. It was always, it was just trying to, you know, it was all like, you know, fucking how thin I could wear my tie, and like, it wasn't, how many cigarettes I could smoke, whether, you know, which Bauhaus album I had under my arm. It wasn't about like education or even prowess on the sporting field. It was faggot and trying not to get beaten up by the local comprehensives. But the school I went to beforehand was really establishment, and loads of the kids went on to like Eton. And so what it gave me, it's interesting because what you've got now in power and a lot of the politics, those people of my age are people like, I mean, Cameron's older than me. They're people in power. And you go, I understand why they're so fucked. I understand it, because a lot of them started boarding age 7. They were little kids, and they don't have compassion. They don't truly have compassion because they can't feel it. Because when age 7, they had to, I was a day boy, so I didn't suffer, but they had to become they became these little emotional islands. And then the whole school was geared to that very traditional establishment thing of, we're manning people for the empire. So we've got to breed these little generals, and that's what they've. So for years I was kind of in denial about it. It was a school called the Dragon School, and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't go to that. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm actually glad I went there, because it gave me an insight into another world, which is not my world at all. And I never felt comfortable. I always felt like an outsider. But I can understand it a bit. But how did you? I mean, what was your relationship? Did you go through similar?
It's everything you're saying I completely relate to. Like, what's funny though is that nobody's ever thought to ask me, did I go to private school, because of this accent.
Yeah.
And some people, when I say like, I went to private school, there was only 7 of us in the class, and people are like, ha ha ha, ha, it's so funny, Nadine. I'm like, oh, I actually went to private school. And they're like, and they don't believe me. I'm like, do you have those in Newcastle? Yes, we do. And in fact, my accent is, one of my brothers, I think, might be watching this right now. And they find my accent hilarious, because they're like, it is kind of half fabricated. Because I had a really heavy, thick northern accent growing up. And then I went to I went to a school in Sunderland, and so I had a Sunderland accent, so I spoke like that, and I said like things like book, school, Nadian.
I love that.
And then I went to this posh school, a private school in Newcastle, and then we had these elocution lessons where they ironed out my accent, which did me a few favours in not being bullied.
Right.
But then I started talking like this, and I don't know why it went so husky, but it did. And it was like, honestly, it was like
wow.
that. And when I do the accent to my partner, he's like, oh, it's awful, don't do that ever again. And then I moved to London at like 17, and I went to a college in London, and they said, oh, where are you from? I said, oh, I'm from Newcastle. They were like, oh, it's so disappointing. They were like, you don't sound like it. And I was like, why, I do like it. And I just put it on. I just put it on, and it stuck. But what I found really interesting, now I can't get rid of it. And one thing I found really interesting was I noticed massive differences between myself, who was privately educated, and my friends who haven't been. And there's a confidence we were taught in my school. You walk into a restaurant, you walk into a room like you own it, and there is a sense of entitlement and privilege.
Yeah.
And I am quite a competent public speaker in things, and I think some of the things that were instilled in me in that school, there was this kind of rank sense of entitlement, and they really did try their utmost to make us, anything which made you stand out, they didn't encourage. My music was never encouraged, my art was never encouraged, my accent was ironed out, like I said. I really didn't enjoy my time there. No. I was bullied quite badly, really, really badly. I was bullied really badly. It was horrendous. And the school asked me to leave. Because the 7 other girls that were bullying me, one's parents did this and the other one's parents did that. And I was the one, after being beaten black and blue, was asked to leave the school. I have stitches in the back of my head.
No way.
My head was split open in that school.
Oh my God.
And years later, I'm quite successful, and the school get in touch. We would like, to my management company, we would love for Nadine to come back and give a speech at the school, you know, how she went to. Are they having a fucking laugh?
Yeah.
You destroyed me. I'm so lucky that I came out of that place, alive, and with the spirit intact, and then with enough kind of fight in me to want to be an artist and to want to make work. I'm not saying that all private schools are bad. Not at all. But there are certain things I've noticed, like just the privilege that I had at that in that school before it got bad. Like, you know, having English lessons where there's only 6 of us in the class, where we can get into deep nitty-gritty conversation about these great books, and we get undivided attention from teachers. My cousin is a teacher, and you know, she has to teach 36 kids in a classroom. My best friend's mother is a teacher. She was head of languages. She now teaches geography. She doesn't know out about geography. But you have to make do wherever they can. And so I have seen a massive difference. I'm very grateful to me dad for all the efforts that he made. But actually, most of my education, I honestly would say, came from my mother. My mother sadly passed away this year, but she was from South Shields, and quite not a poor background as such. Her dad worked away at sea, but you know, they weren't wealthy by any means at all. But she was always very artistic, and she loved poetry, especially the Romantics. And my mother always instilled that in me. And I said to my partner, I was like, you know, if we ever have kids and we can't afford to send them to whatever school, it doesn't matter what school we send them to, because I'm their mammy. Yeah. And I'm going to teach them. And I hope that is the case. But
that's I don't know. That's the you know. We've got 16. Salvador. Our son is 16, and Una Salvador.
Great name, game.
He's 16, and Una is 14. Oh. And I totally agree with you. It's what you pass on to your children, those things, your passions. I mean, to have a mother who loved the Romantics, you know, that's just going to be, you know, that love for something is going to be passed on to you from a very early age, isn't it? And I love that thing about parenthood. And, you know, so many of my earliest memories are, you know, you're just in your orbit of your mum, aren't you? And you're kind of like, my mum was really into, one of my earliest memories, like music. My parent, you know, your parents were probably quite young when, you know, we had young parents. My mum was 22 when she had me. So she's a girl, really, a very young woman. And like earliest memories, sort of, we're in the sitting room, and that horrible carpet that was really tough on the knees. And I'd been in little shorts, and you come away from it, and there'd be like anyway. But there'd be like the record player with the 45s, or the album that came out was Bridge Over Troubled Water, so my mum would play that a lot, or Prokofiev or something. But her sort of, you know, her love for dressmaking, she used to make her own dresses and clothes, and she still does. And just being in your parents' orbit, all that stuff rubs off, doesn't it? And it's so important. I mean, you get all the, you know, you get all the shit as well. Because...
yeah, I mean, that Philip Larkin poem. They
Yeah.
fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that as well.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky enough to have parents that don't, then thank goodness for that. My mum was actually quite an old mummy when she had me. She was 38.
So she's like a modern mummy, yeah.
Modern mummy. I was the third child.
Okay.
But 38. But even despite that, she'd come and she was a gorgeous bugger. I look nothing like her. Honestly, I'm not just saying. I'm not being.
Oh, come on! Are you fishing for a compliment
no,
here?
I honestly look not like it. I'll show you a photo later. You can see it on my Instagram and stuff. I looked nothing like the bugger. I wish I did. She was half Norwegian, half English.
Wow.
Beautiful, tall Scandinavian bird, blonde hair. She looked like Julie Christie when she was
wow.
And I look nothing like Julie Christie. So there you go. And she would turn up at the school gates to pick me up. And she'd have like leather trousers on and these like cool jumping. And I was like, can you not just dress like all the other mummies? And I remember she took me to John Lewis one day and she went, right, you want me to dress like all the other mothers? What do you want me to wear then? You pick me out something. And I picked out this long navy dress with polka dots on it. It was the most drab type of clothing I could find. I was like, I want you to wear this. And I say that she said this, but she didn't. In my mind, she said, you can get to fuck. And she didn't. I'm sure she was not that vulgar. But she basically just said no. But yeah,
what was your mum's name?
Heather.
Heather. Raise a glass to Heather.
Yeah, she's great. We call her Heather Forever. She was brilliant.
Heather Forever. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
How did she meet your dad?
Well, actually, so in South Shields.
Yeah. So
South Shields is an interesting place. Dad came over from Pakistan in the early 70s, late 60s, and London first, then somewhere else. I get it wrong all the time. And I assumed he came over just by a plane. He just got a ticket. England, please. No, it was a very difficult journey for a young man to make. And he did it. And I'm very proud of him for what he's done and what he's achieved. And he ends up in South Shields. Now, South Shields is a port town. So South Shields, they had like some of the first immigrant populations in England were in South Shields. We have a huge Yemeni population.
Wow.
In South Shields.
Is that because it's a port?
Yes.
Okay.
And Muhammad Ali got married in South Shields. In our
what?
Yeah, in the mosque in South Shields.
What, the king?
Yeah. My dad was there. Yeah.
Well, your dad was at the wedding of Muhammad Ali.
I mean, he wasn't invited. He's outside. So.
Yeah, wow.
But
oh my God,
it's a really interesting place, and there's lots of kids like me are in lots of mixed race kids.
Yeah.
Like me are live in South Shields, and it's always been a very tolerant and inclusive, beautiful place. I never experienced a spot of racism there. Very different thing, and I'm sorry to anyone who's from Sunderland. It sounds like I'm always putting it down. I don't mean to. I love Sunderland a lot, and I want it to be better.
Yeah.
But only a few miles distance between South Shields and Sunderland, and completely polarising attitudes towards immigrants. Anyways, my father spots my mum and he just fell in love with her. I think he was dating her mate to get to my mum. Oh, it's not the best story. Anyway,
guys will do that. Listen, that's not the first time a guy's done that.
I know, but
Speaking from experience.
that would not work. That would not wash with me. I'm like, I don't want your sloppy, Stephanie. I don't want your sloppy seconds. No thanks. No, I wouldn't. But my mum was fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I love this story. My dad went up to her at like a discotheque and was like, "Oh, do you want to dance?" She said, "Yeah, great." Think he's all exotic. She's like, "Yeah, sure." And then they get to the dance floor, and the music changes, and then kung fu fighting comes on.
Wow!
And my dad's face is just like, "How the fuck do you dance to this?" So that was their song. But yeah, they were together for 40 years.
Talking of kung fu dancing, have you seen the Steve McQueen? That scene. Have you seen the Steve McQueen Small Acts, a TV series on BBC on a Sunday night?
I've just seen the first one. The guy joins a police force.
Yeah. That's John Boyega. That's the third one. The second one is basically a house party in Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill. I mean, the whole thing is genius. But check out the kung fu fighting scene. It is genius because it's like it. Anyway, I digressed. I'm really
watching that after this.
It's the best, I think, and also for anyone out there, I think it's the best thing on TV. Steve McQueen's, what he's done, he's a master. And like every shot, don't you think it's like he allows a shot to breathe, and they're long frames. And I went into the studio earlier this week because I'm starting my whole creative process, and I went on Monday morning, and I said my whole thing was just like, I was really influenced by watching this, and I said, what I'm looking for is that quality in a Steve McQueen film, in his work, which is silence. There's silence in the music, silence in music, and silence in, do you know what I mean?
Space, yeah.
That kind of profound thing that you allow things like it's, I have to say, I'm not saying this as a bad segue or anything, but it's in your record in abundance. You know, I just emailed you and you said, "I'll see you in a set." And I said, "I'm listening to Kite, you know, the track on your record." It's extraordinary. You know, you've let it breathe. You haven't kind of gone, okay, like, well, we're in an age where we have to kind of like, okay, I need to get to the hook or whatever. It's just like, no.
There is that. You and I have been talking a lot about Spotify recently and streaming platforms, but there is that thing where, and our friend Guy was saying, even he himself, he changed from Guy from Elbow, he changed one of his songs, the intro, to make it come in quicker, to adhere to this format, because people want how this format works and how people ingest music now for me, it's like, it's difficult when you have a voice as great as that. When you've got a really technically good voice, it's hard sometimes not to do the vocal acrobatics. And there's times I just want to go all Shirley Bassey, all bells and whistles. But then the beauty is lost when you reserve those moments and you hold back and you take your time and then you give the listener that bit later on. It's all the more satisfying.
You do it perfectly. You do it brilliantly, because I wanted to ask you about this because you have such an extraordinary voice, and it's what I love about it is you've got all the technique, but this power in your voice. There aren't many people who have that kind of power. I mean, I hear so much there's so much strength in your voice. And what you do is you're not doing musical histrionics, but it's that thing, isn't it? When somebody's great, but they don't have to show you they're great. There's all my favorite musicians would be like, I don't know if you know, one of my favorite guitarists is a guy called Dave Akumu. And
I work with him a lot.
Okay, you work with Dave.
Love him.
I love David. He played on my record. So
did you? Oh.
Yeah, I love David. And David, like, first time I saw his band The Invisible at the Thingy Arms it was once the trendiest spot on the planet about 10 years ago.
In New Cross?
No, the Something Arms in Dalston, you know, anyway. So he's playing with his...
Shacklewell.
Yeah, Shacklewell Arms, exactly. So he's playing this stuff and he's doing the gig and like he's nailing all these beautiful, you know, he's singing and playing. And then he does this Prince thing, like on the guitar. And that to me, it's like what you do. It's like you're not showing off. You're doing it. It's with soul. It's proper. It's like it resonates. And I know what I wanted to ask you. So here's the thing. If you've got a voice like yours, which you can polish a song, right? You can, and I'm not saying this about you because I think the album is great, but have you ever had this thing where you've had a not very good song and you've added your vocal and that's been, that's enough, or you kind of think, I'll just have my vocal or whatever, and we'll get it into a good place.
I mean, it's worked the other way around as well, where we've had a good song and I put my vocal on it and I've ruined it.
Really?
No, I'm just being silly.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's a lovely relationship I have working with Ben Hillier. Ben Hillier is my producer.
Okay.
And we've been it's our 4th album we've made together. And we have this beautiful, intuitive way of working together now. And he never knows what it's still, I think this is a beautiful thing about it. I never know what he's going to do to a song.
Yeah.
My demo. I never quite know what he's going to do to it. And the same way he still is surprised, and he tells me this. He's like, he'll send me something. Oh, she probably can't write to this. I don't know. And I'll send something back, and he's like, I thought that was dog shit. And this thing I didn't think that's going to be our lead single. And I didn't. I don't know. And it's for a long time, for a very long time. And I guess, and I've spoken to a lot of musicians about this as well. For a long time, I thought it was like this kind of Emperor's New Clothes, imposter theory. That's what it's called. Imposter theory. And I was like, one day I'm going to get caught out. People are going to realize I'm a fraud and I'm not actually that good. And then after a while, you're like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm really good at my job. And you know what? I couldn't do that job that you do. And I definitely couldn't do that job. And I hell do a handstand. And I can't touch me too. But I can write a strong melody. And I can sing a song with conviction. And I mean it. And I will put my heart and I'll put everything I have in me being into what I'm going to provide you, what I'm going to make. I think that's maybe it. I don't know. And it's taken me a long time to learn my voice and control it. But I've got a good relationship with my voice now. It took a lot of learning.
How did you do the thing? Because the live thing, because you're very, very strong live. I mean, I haven't seen you live, but I remember your performance at the Mercury's 2 years ago. I'm like, wow, she's just got the Mercury Music Prize with that. I mean, it's like, it was incredible. Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not.
Bloody didn't.
Yeah.
Bloody Wolf Alice.
Yeah, well, join the club, nominated 5 times and not once won it.
Have you guys never won it?
Never won it. It's brilliant. And do you know what? I never want to fucking win it either.
I don't even want to fucking win it.
Fuck the Mercuries.
The kiss of death. It's like, what is the Mercury curse or something?
It's funny, I didn't mention it to Guy, but we'd never sort of go to award ceremonies or anything like this. I'll slightly digress because I want to get back. I'd never go to award ceremonies because I just kind of like, we went to the Brits first Brits we went to was in 96.
When it was
the one where, when Jarvis mooned, and I was sat on an EMI table, and there was Kylie on the next one. We were all on one table. There's Kylie on the next one. There's Brian May behind me, which was hilarious, from Queen. The Queen guy's on the table behind me. That was the year that Oasis cleaned up. And Brian May leans over to me and he goes like, they got no talent, that lot. Your lot are much better. I'm like, oh, Brian May thinks we're better than Oasis.
That's fine. That's fine. That's like at the Mercury's, I was so gutted.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually that good. I had to console.
You're amazing at that. I listen, your performance, everybody's great, but you were amazing that night.
It was fun. It was such a joy to do. My mother and my father were there, and when they announced the winner is Wolf Alice, my mum looked at me and she just went.
Did she really?
Yeah, but then I got there was a tweet. Louis Theroux was in the room. I didn't realise Louis Theroux was there. Yeah. And he tweeted like, it was a great, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, great show, blah, blah, blah. But the standout performance for me tonight was Nadine Shaw. And I was like, that's better than a Mercury. We're fine. Louis
great,
thinks
isn't
it's
it?
all right.
Yeah.
It's a joy to do, but I get so jealous when I hear your stories. Like when you would go to award shows as bridesmaids. Mine's rubbish. I was born too late.
Yeah, but also,
So much more
listen,
fun.
yeah, but they weren't really, because they were like, we just used to get really pissed, and obviously, and I just didn't like the energy of those places. It was also, I don't know, it was like always the difference between the British awards, the British scene and American scene was, American scene, it was a lot more supportive. You know, people would be like, you know, oh, hi, how you doing? Oh, it's Dave Grohl, the Foos, and it's like, you know, and everybody's kind of like, oh, yeah. In Britain, it was always like, you know, yeah, you're fucking shit. You know, sort of, you know, we were, I wouldn't say we ever had run-ins with any bands, because we sort of avoided all of that. But there was always a deep sense. It was that in those days, I don't know if it's like that with the younger bands, the next generation, but it was very, I just wanted to get along with people. I love to gone up to, you know, Noel or Bonehead and gone, you know what? I fucking love your first two records. They're brilliant. But you always felt like if you did that, you could do that with an American band. If you did that, you get snapped down. I remember I said it to Damon Albarn back in '94 or '5. Like we were at the Radio 1 or something, and we were just going in to do an interview with Lamack and Joe Wiley. And it was all post sort of Part Life. And, you know, I mean, like, Modern Life is rubbish, their second record, and Part Life, we're making our second record, The Bends, when Part Life came out. We were like, fucking hell, this is so good. So I said it to the guy, and he was like a fucking arsehole back to me.
What, Damon?
Yeah!
Standard. He is an arsehole.
Right, okay, I didn't know that, but
No, I'm joking.
no.
I don't know.
No, and I'm not saying he is now, but that was typical of the scene. Everybody was just like really kind of. It was a bit like, you know what it was like? It was like being back in the school playground. It was exactly like that. And when you go to America, so I kind of avoided going to those award ceremonies, but the funny one was, So I didn't mention it to Guy the other day, but the last one I went to in Britain was the Mercury's in 2008 when he won it. They won it with Seldom Seen Kid. Yeah, and we were up for In Rainbows, and we didn't win.
I remember being really angry that you didn't get it that year.
Oh, do you know? And the funniest, I'll tell you my funny Paul McCartney story. And Paul McCartney, have you met Paul McCartney?
Very briefly once when I was supporting Fife Dangerfield, he walked past and said, lovely piano playing, cracking pipes.
Yeah, he's great. He's like,
so nice.
What an amazing guy. And I'm not going to tell my Paul McCartney story, actually, because...
You're going to have to.
Oh, am I? Because, well, it was funny because... no, I can't.
Honestly, I love this. Please indulge me. I love this shit. Because you know
really?
What? It's like, you can't make this shit up. And it's like, if you've got a Paul McCartney's... One of my friends said to me a while back, I was mentioning a story about, you know, a famous person that I'd met. And they were like, oh, clang. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? What fucking story have you got to tell? Like, I'm excited. I'm not jaded about my job. And I freaking met Bono and I freaking did it. It's a fucking cool story.
It's a cool story, right?
A Paul McCartney story.
Okay, so I love Nitin Sawhney. I love his stuff. He's doing a gig at the Albert Hall back in like 2001, 2002. And he says, you know, we get put on the guest list, and I go with my wife Susan, who's my girlfriend at the time, and two friends of ours. And it was the days when we used to get really baked before gigs, really, you know. And so, and we get our tickets for we arrive at it. So you feel it's a real event, and we've got seats in the Royal Box. You know, we're like, there are 6 seats in the Royal Box, 4 at the front, 2 at the back, and and I'm like, wow, I'm like, you know, we're like a kid in a candy store, right? Aren't you? You're like, wow, this is amazing. So sit down there, and Susan and our friends go off to the bar to get a drink, and I'm really high. And there's this kind of kerfuffle behind me, and someone sit down behind me, and I turn around, and it's Paul McCartney, and I'm really stoned.
Behind you.
Behind me, and I'm like, oh, hi. I'm really baked, and he's so cool. And I introduced myself. I said, oh, hi. I said, I'm Ed. I'm in a band called Radiohead. He went, and we just won a Grammy for Kid A, and we'd been in the same category, Best Alternative Album, as Paul had. And he was just like, didn't you just beat me? Didn't you lot just beat me to the Grammy? And I went, yeah. And he said, I should have won that, jokingly. I said, of course you should have, you know. But, you know, the whole thing was, and at the end, he gave me this massive bear hug. But to do it, it was like a dream. To do it like absolutely baked. It's part of the, you know, it's part of the joy in the things that we do, right? These situations that we have.
The one thing that I bloody miss about touring, and award ceremonies and all that.
Yeah.
And I know there'll be people watching and this now, like, oh, we can't relate to that. I know. But none of it, not a spot of it is ever lost on me.
No.
And I have so many musicians, and I think you included, just with your story you're telling now, you're telling it so excitedly now.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. But it's just, I really miss being among my people.
Yeah.
And I'd be like backstage at a festival and you see other names there and you're like, holy shit, so and so's here. And you know, you're in catering. I remember once sat next to Tom Jones and he had a roast dinner. Went in love catering.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it?
Depends which ones. And he came and sat next to me and I was like, oh. He choked on a potato like, hello. And he's like, oh, do you mind if I sit here? I'm like, no, you can sit here, it's fine. Oh, I see you got the roast as well. And I'm like, yeah, I got the roast. Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You've got 2 bags full with sir. And we're chatting for a bit, and then he leaves. He leaves his Yorkshire pudding. And then my manager looks at me at the time, my old manager, and he goes, if you're not going to eat his fucking Yorkshire pudding, I am. So we're like, and we half his Yorkshire pudding, we're like, I can't believe it. And then like my friends were like, how was the festival? How was the show? And I'm like, I ate half of Tom Jones's Yorkshire pudding. But
it's amazing, isn't it? And I love that.
Silly things.
I love that thing. Yeah, festivals like that cross-pollination that goes on. I always love, every year we go to Glastonbury and always hanging around.
You go every year?
Every year we sleep in the teepee field next to the park stage. And one of the things I love about it is just meeting all the bands and stuff. Like, you know, I remember, it was 2 years ago, like Mark from Idols, one of the guitarists, so just about to go on stage.
Owen?
Yeah. And he comes up to me and he goes, and I know who he is. I'm like, fucking Idols, they're great. And he goes, I'm a really big Radiohead fan, Ed. You know, are you going to be around? You know, and we chatted afterwards, and it's like, I love that. I love those.
I'm sorry, I just remember seeing you at the same time and being shit scared to talk to you. And my mates like Matt Everett and that lot were there, and I was like, is that fucking Ed O'Brien? They were like, yeah, just go and say hello. I was like, fuck, I forgot to say hello. Just go and say hi. I was like, I can't fucking, hi, I'm the team. How are you? So yeah, I was starstruck. I mean, not now.
Not now, you know, we're old friends.
It's funny, but then I remember seeing you talking to them, but that was a glorious year. I mean, I miss just bloody, I make loads of friends at festivals.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, they're not musicians.
Yeah.
They're music lovers, because I go and watch loads of bands when I go to festivals.
Yeah.
I meet people who love these bands as much as I do. And I've made a bunch of buddies from even like the security and all the stagehand. I miss them.
Yeah.
Some festivals I do a lot, like at Latitude. I know all their team. I know all the teams. And I see the same punters going there year to year. It's the whole family. It only works when we're all together, from fans to the stage managers, to all the tech, to security, to the artists. It's a bloody family.
It is.
Go at the door. It's so glorious.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's that thing. Like I remember about 8 years ago. I was in about 4 o'clock in the morning in Shangri-La. And one of my friend's dads is a guy called David, and he helped Michael Eavis set up the original. So he's now like 89. So he was like 83 then, and he's with us in the middle of Shangri-La, and I'm like, it's Michael. I'm like, Michael, and I'm like, party. And I said, Michael, what is it about Glastonbury? This feels so primal. And he said, Ed, it's the meeting of the tribes of the North, the South, the East, and the West. And it's like, yeah, that's what it is, right? And I love that.
And
it was just,
MDMA.
yeah.
It is, you're right. And this is like, I know, I don't know why I've always said this same. I don't want to sound too hippy dippy. I've said that for years. I've said it for years. Whereas now I'm like, actually, everything that's hippy dippy are just like nice things.
Give in to your hippiness.
I really am. I really bloody am. And I think for so long I was like afraid to show my emotion towards it. I was afraid to just let myself have a nice time and let myself go. And I had this kind of a front and was it ego? I think it was insecurity.
Yeah.
I think it was insecurity that wouldn't allow me to have fun sometimes. Just, you know what, Nadine? Allow yourself, drop all this bullshit that you have. Drop it. Drop this insecurity and let people in. And I found that at certain festivals like Glastonbury. I've really I've had some glorious times there and some bloody shite ones.
Yeah.
And the same at many other festivals or concerts in general. I think they are special. I think they're truly special.
What was it? Was there because I understand that thing of like, was there a moment, how recently was that when you kind of say, okay, you let go? Because I think that's quite, I don't know, I recognize that from years back, but when you're younger, that whole thing of control or, I think for us, it came as a kind of, and me, it was like a work ethic. It was kind of like, I don't want to let go. I've got to stay on it, got to stay on it. How long was there a moment or anything when you sort of did you have a eureka moment, or was it a gradual thing? And how long has it been like that?
There's been phases of it, like waves of it. I remember years ago when I started kind of like my foray into being became a kind of known name, and I remember being so concerned about what people thought about me, so painfully acutely aware about what people thought about me, Googling your name, looking at the comments on Twitter, all of it. It's none of your bloody business. It's none of your business. There are people that I don't like, and I have no reason for why I don't like them. I won't go on the internet and slag them off, but people are allowed to not like me. You've got to not care. It's not normal to be in a room and leave it and know what everybody says about you in that room. And I found myself becoming so egotistical and so egocentric. I was really caught in my own world. As soon as, and I was comparing myself to other artists all the time as well. What's she doing? And it was always females
Wow.
I compared myself to, not men. And I was cruel. I'm not proud of my behavior, but the industry made me thus, I think. And the day that I decided I'm going to embrace my fellow female musicians, I'm going to not be competitive. I'm going to not give a shit about what people say about me. People are entitled and perfectly allowed. It's reasonable to not like what I make or me.
Yeah.
Let it go. It's fine. Why focus on this negativity? It was one of the most freeing things that ever happened. And I think that I've made, and that was just after the first album, during the second. And because the first album, you're not really affected when you're making it. Second album. After that, I felt so much freer in my whole life in how I interacted with my friends, but especially when it came to music making. It doesn't matter.
No.
You can make mistakes. People could not like you. There will be people that do, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's gotten, my mother dying recently, people were preparing me for, she was ill, she had cancer. People were preparing me for her death. and giving me books about grief and bereavement and all the rest of it. And I really appreciated all their help, but nobody told me this one thing. Nobody told me that once someone so close to you dies, you gain a superpower. And you feel invincible. I feel
Wow.
so empowered by it. Nothing can hurt me anymore. There's
Wow.
nothing that can hurt me. And I try my best, and I really make a conscious effort now to just love loads more. Loads more. And I think that's been a combination of what I was saying before. It's been
Yeah.
a process, but I'm glad that I've gotten here now. I do need to go back and remind myself time and time again, don't let this bother you. Get on. There's things bigger than you. There are things much bigger than you. But I've got to constantly remind myself of that. But I think for making art, it's really important.
How do you have a means to sort of, because how are the things do you have a meditation moment every day? Is it music, your meditation is, what do you have something that brings you back to what you're talking about is, and I think it's that thing when you stop being the center of your life in a way, it's the bigger picture. You realize I'm just a soul walking this planet at this time in this stage. And the thing is, the drama of life pulls you in, doesn't it? And it pulls you like, we've just had a house move, and it's only a fucking house move, but I've been so stressed, and I lose sense of myself. And when I lose sense of myself, I lose sense of what you're talking about, the bigger picture. But the thing that has saved me, not being a complete arse, is meditating every day. And that's a moment and it's not always easy, but do you have something that keeps you grounded, or do you have a technique, or is there something that you use? Or are you able to deal with it?
I'm trying my best to meditate, but it's like, then I think, actually, the form of meditation, my meditation is actually, it's when I'm at the piano, and this I find such an awesome force for me. It's when I'm not thinking about anything else, and I tend to play the same melody over and over and over again until it's in my, what do you call it, your
muscle memory.
And then I'm just focused on that, and I'm in this zone, which
Yeah.
I guess is meditative.
It is.
That's been the best thing for me.
I think. Is that how you write? Is that the place that you go to when you write?
I mean, my writing process is nothing. It's really not fun to talk about. It's very dull, because I force myself to write. I've never ever had, I'm not lying, I've never had like, one of those eureka moments.
No.
Never. And so I work at it.
Yeah.
And I'll write a pile of shite, and then I go back the next day and I don't want to listen to it. And then I go back a week later. Actually, there's a grain of something beautiful there.
Yeah.
But I try and write every day, even if it's just words, random words in my notes section of my phone, which isn't very romantic. It's not a leather-bound book, but that, and it's really helping me. It's really, there's so many habits that I've during lockdown that I'm grateful of. I mean, I miss my friends a lot, but I'm actually very grateful for, it's really forced me to look in, because I have a quite a destructive nature. I had a very destructive habits before lockdown, and it's forced me to be still and to be calmer. And I really hone in and focus on the really simple things in my life right now. The joy I get from cooking is wild. And those moments I find meditative as well.
Yeah, they are. You don't have to sit down and meditate cross-legged in a half lotus like I do.
Yeah.
Because actually I'm self-taught, so I'm like this mongrel meditator. But I get just as much meditation as you said in that creative process when you're playing something over and over again, and it becomes hypnotic, and it becomes like a trance, and that's meditation. That when I've had, it's interesting. Have you heard? Do you know? Everyone out here knows how much I love this whole Wim Hof thing. Do you know about the Wim Hof thing?
Yes, mate. I live by the sea.
Yeah.
I'm making a documentary. I'm about to make one. Exclusive. It's not. Ramsgate
Woo!
Radio. Ramsgate Radio is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
Ramsgate Radio, local radio has been the saviour of lockdown, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And a great radio station called Ramsgate Radio, headed by a lovely man called Philippe. He's given me free rein to make whatever I want to make. There are so many, predominantly women, that go in the freezing cold sea here every day. And I'm walking and I'm like, what are these mad bitches doing? Holy shit. And I've been talking to them. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? And I was watching Wim Hof, his method for such a long time. I try my cold showers. Every person that I talk to, so many women, it's predominantly women, have moved here. And a lot of them, it's for the water,
the
cold water, and the benefits of it, for their mental health, for their physical health. It's really exciting, and science is even going,
it's extraordinary. I've been doing this for 6 weeks.
What do you mean 6? What
I've been doing this breathing technique that he does. He talks about in the book, and then you have the cold shower. And the cold shower, when you're in London, the cold isn't really that cold.
Right.
But the cold shower at the house we moved into, I think they've chilled the water. It's like well, our home is really in Wales, in the mountains in Wales, and the water comes straight out of the ground, and it's cold.
When you lose your breath, and you're
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely profound. I think there's something really, really profound about it. And I've been doing years of meditation, and I do this the breathing technique, and the cold water, and it's bonkers. It's bonkers.
I think it's so exciting. When my mother was ill, we were looking, when we knew she was past any kind of medical care that was available, we're looking into holistic things, and my brother has been researching Wim Hof for years. It turns out, my elder brother, and he also goes cold water swimming. And then we were watching documentaries where Wim Hof is working with cancer patients as well.
Yeah, wow.
There is so much which is unknown, and I just find him to be such a beautiful, gorgeous man. He suffered such tragedy in his life as well. And I find him so inspiring. There's a few things that have gotten me through my grief, and it's watching people that overcome it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really inspired by them. Wim Hof is one. Watching Bob Mortimer and I keep calling him Paul Whitehouse.
Paul Whitehouse.
Gone Fishing.
Gone Fishing.
Honestly, that has been the best for my grief ever. But people like that, they talk about their grief so openly. Wim Hof, and it's you're sad and shit is bad. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You have to do something, and it kind of sink or swim, excuse the pun, but you have to do something. And I'm in such admiration of people that do, and it makes me go like, no, don't watch daytime telly. Get up and do something.
Yeah.
It's only going to be good for me and everybody around me, and the knock-on effect will go miles and miles and miles. But I have been talking to the women who've been going in the sea and swimming, and they're saying, well, at the end of the documentary, well, you must get in. I chose winter to make this documentary.
To start. How was it?
No, I haven't gone in.
Come on.
No, they're still trying to get me in, and
Listen, I've been a real wuss about cold water. If you do it, I'll come down one day. I'll come down and I'll get in the cold water.
I will hold you to that.
Are you okay talking about your mum? Are you okay? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, because your mum passed away earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you sort of in the griefs? You've obviously, how are you processing it? Because it's not something, it takes, you're living with it, right? You live with the passing of a mum for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because she was my best friend. And I know a lot of people will say that, but and I believe them as well. But she was my best friend, my best friend. And it was so awful when she was ill because she didn't deserve it. And nobody deserves to be ill. You know, no one, and out of everybody in the world, I'm just like, why her? She was so kind and she was so beautiful. And COVID made it a lot worse. COVID made it terrible. It meant that I couldn't see her for the first 3 months of lockdown, 2 months of lockdown. And her illness got worse and worse and worse there. And she didn't get the death that she deserved, but she was actually, when she did die, she was in not her own bed, but in a bed in her bedroom in our home overlooking the North Sea. She was surrounded by her 3 kids and her husband. And you couldn't script it. The last words she said was I love you. And she slipped away so quietly. And I keep unpicking how it happened and all the rest of it. I had just made a sandwich downstairs, a freaking cracking sandwich. And my brother calls me. He's like, Nadine, you've got to come upstairs. All right, I think it's happening. I'm like, oh. And I go up. And Mum is going, and I can see what's happening. And I'm thinking about this fucking sandwich all the time. There's all these things that are going on. I'm starting, I don't know why I brought the sandwich up. I still can't forget this fucking sandwich. I have PTSD, PTSD. I have PTSD because I wasn't ready for how my mum died. I wasn't ready for that. I was preparing for a long time. I was grieving for a long time, but I wasn't ready for how it happened because I was only allowed to see her not even every day, but she was in hospital for the last week before we got her home for a day to die. Only one family member was allowed in the hospital for half an hour each day. She was terrified. She was alone. She didn't know what was happening. When I see fuckers going around with no mask on, when I see people acting carelessly, I get so angry because I wasn't able to be with my mother when she was dying. And it's not right and it's not fair. I'm so respectful of everybody else who might be good. There are so many people in the same position that I'm in now. It's taught me so much. I'm getting to a point now where I let my mum come in. I let her be there. I let her be present. It's important to feel her presence. And I enjoy memories of her. I really do. But when I catch myself bad behavior, being a bit of a dick, I'm like, what would she think? Don't do that and do her proud. It's been really interesting. It's been the biggest thing I've ever felt in my life. And it's not all bad, actually. Some of grief is quite beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's so, well, thank you for talking. I mean, I thank you for that honesty as well about like one eye on the sandwich and the other, you know, that the humanity of that, I sort of had I don't know if this resonates at all, but I had if you like, I had a sort of an awakening about 18, 19 years ago. And it sort of started me off on the spiritual path, if you like, the spirit, in inverted commas. I know it sounds, but one of the things that and I've read a lot and I've felt a lot and experienced a lot. And I love the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where, you know, to me, it's not, you know, that Tibetan Buddhism isn't something of, it's tangible, it's real. It's like these people have meditated on, they understand about the different worlds. And that idea that these souls, that we are souls, that the soul leaves the body, but the soul lives on. And that if you can bring those people into your, like, I don't know, have you had a dream about your mum since she passed?
Every evening I have.
There you go. And it's like, I'm sure you wake up and you're like, I was with my mum. You are. It's like, it's such a,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, but it isn't easy. Yeah.
I'll talk to my partner about it sometimes, and I'm like, sometimes they're so beautiful and they're so vivid and they're so real, and I think that I don't know what I believe about where we go, whatever, but there is her essence.
Yeah.
And we have conversations and we're hanging out, and it's lovely. And so I feel like I cry a lot less than I used to because I'm hanging out with my mum.
Yeah.
Sometimes in evenings. There's something really beautiful going on. I'm still I would like to process whatever is happening, and I would love to be able to put it into whatever I make next. I would love to be able to write it down and properly explain to people what it's like. I'm still trying to get my head around it. I'm open to talking to people about their grief and what they've experienced, and finding it overwhelmingly interesting. And like I said before, there's so much sadness, which is kind of omnipresent, but there is beauty in it. And that I never expected there would be that. It's fucking weird.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I haven't lost my mum or my dad, but there's beauty in grief. There's beauty in sadness. I think that's one of the things maybe as musicians, sometimes musicians we're able to do, isn't it? That we're able to find the beauty in sadness. We're able to find the beauty in pain. That, you know, I suffered from depression for years. And when we made OK Computer, which, you know, by all means should have been like on top of the world, I'd never been more depressed. And I got into this Brazilian music. I became obsessed with bossa nova, and the original bossa nova and the tropicalista. And I realized what it was, because at the heart of this music it's saudade, sadness, deep sadness, grief. But there's such beauty in that music, and there's a beauty. There can be a beauty to being lost, isn't there? There's a beauty. I mean, whether you romanticize it or not, but there can be. I mean, it doesn't last like that, because you have to sort your shit. You have to grieve, and you have to process things, and you have to get better. But there are moments when it's like I don't know, like a kaleidoscope or so. You know what I mean? It's like it's otherworldly. It's.
And people are at their most authentic in those moments. I remember being in Portugal. I was in Lisbon, and I stumbled upon the Fado.
Oh, Fado. I love Fado.
Holy
You could be a Fado singer.
Well,
you could be. You've got the voice and the power and the emotion.
These women. I mean, I don't know if you can see who's behind me, but it's my favourite singer of all time. It's Maria Callas.
Oh, amazing.
I love it. But I remember I was sat outside a restaurant. I was sat in a restaurant, sat outdoors in a restaurant, and this Fado singer came over, this beautiful woman. She must have been in her late 60s, and she was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. When people say youth is currency, bullshit. She's better than me and all my mates put together. And she was wearing this gorgeous long black dress, and she sang the saddest song. I didn't understand the language, but I've been brought up in a house where I don't understand the language.
Yeah.
My dad has a beautiful singing voice, and he sings ghazals. Ghazals are sad love songs. Really, really.
Wow.
And my dad sings them so beautifully. So I'm accustomed to listening to sad love songs, which lyrics I don't understand. And she sang this song, and I just was entranced. And I looked around, and there were these young lads, and they must have been, 15, 14, whatever, with their own beers they bought from the shop. And they were sat there listening. And once she'd finished, they got up and they gave her a few euros each from the.
Wow.
Even they were so in awe, and they had this respect for what she was doing and what she was bringing. And they weren't sat in their fancy restaurant.
No.
It was unifying, and it was awe-inspiring, and it was something else.
Did you ever have you seen any kind of, I had the same thing. I love Fado. There's this very famous singer, isn't it, called Amalia?
Yes.
But I also, years ago, I had a sort of similar, it's funny, Lisbon is a city for me, which I really resonate with. I love that city. It's probably my favorite city in Europe. And I think partly because there is a saudade, there's a sadness, this beauty, and the way that the light hits the river there, and it reflects the city of light, reflects off it. But there is a sadness there as well. Don't you feel like there's this? It's a slight melancholy.
Yeah, and I found the sad.
I love that.
I remember. Oh, it sounds very drunk, but I get very poetic when I'm drunk. But I remember looking down. They have a green wine is a local delicacy.
Yeah.
And I was like, The sadness is in the colour of your wine.
Oh,
So prophetic.
come on. You need to.
It did feel like that. It
Yeah.
reminded me of Istanbul's my favourite city in the world. But it's changing. I love it so much.
I've never been there. I've never been. I so want to go, but sorry, I've interrupted.
I'll take you.
Done.
Deal. Right.
Okay.
I'll take you.
Great.
You can, yeah, I'll take you. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful city, but also because it has the water in between the Bosphorus.
Yeah.
Just like you have in Lisbon, you have that water in between, and you look at either side of the city, and it's messy like Paris.
Yeah.
And
Like Paris.
Paris is a bloody mess, and I love it. It's a mucky, tangled weather mess, and I love it. Love Paris. It reminds me of Paris, and it also reminds me of Istanbul. It was gorgeous just sitting out there at night times and just looking at the water. And yeah, it is. I like a place with a bit of grit.
I'm with you all the way. I have to have a bit of grit, and I like, yeah. It's definitely, there's got to be a little, and there's got to be, at the end of the day, there's got to be a little bit of dust on your face, or a little bit of kind of, do you know what I mean? It's got to, you've got to. I agree with you. I don't like. I mean, I come from the countryside. I hate the way that so many parts of our cities become really urbanized and clean, and this kind of, and it's also like a disease almost of modern times. This obsession with cleanliness in terms of, do you know what I mean? But I agree with you that the grit thing and the little underbelly and the dark arches and the,
yeah,
you know,
you've got to be a little bit worried about losing your life. Just a
yeah,
little bit.
just a little bit.
I could die.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's live like we could die.
Barcelona used to be like that. We used to go to Barcelona like 20 years ago. So one side of we had friends who lived on one side of the Rambla in the Barri Gothic.
Yeah.
And amazing. And it was before it got all kind of, no, it was post the Olympics. So they'd done some stuff. But the other side of the Ramblas, it was like these incredible transvestite bars, but you were worried you're going to get mugged. You're not worried, but you knew that you go around the corner, there are all the heroin dealers, there's the smack, and there's
You've got some money in your shoe just in case.
Yeah, it's a port. Yeah, it's an old port. Probably, I've never been to Naples, but I imagine Naples has got that. Yeah, it's got that thing. It's kind of like, I
love Naples.
There you go.
You would love Naples.
I think you should have your own kind of like travel agency. Nadine Shah's gritty journeys.
Naughty spots, like some parts. We need to go to Palermo.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll end up in Newcastle.
Yeah.
On the big market.
I want to ask you one more question. I'd love to. Can we do this another time? Because I want to ask, and I don't have time, but I would really love to. I'm really love to ask you another time about your father's family in Pakistan, because I have such a deep love for that part of the world. But I'm not going to ask you about that now, because there's a question.
I'm sure we have lots I'm sure there's lots to talk about in similarities between your Irish family also.
Yeah, yeah, and also that part of the world, like. Yeah. Which it's extraordinary. It's an amazing place. Anyway, the thing that I want to ask, and it's actually I wanted to ask your advice. I've started on my own solo thing, which might seem quite strange to some people, because why would you do this at your age and all this stuff? No. The only reason is because I have to. I have to do this, and this is my next journey. The thing and I've just done 6 solo shows, so I've done hundreds, maybe 1,000 gigs, being stage right, playing guitar. Tom's there, Johnny's on this side, Phil's behind me, Colin's there. Done lots of that. But going front and centre, so I've only done 6 shows, and the last show was at the Roundhouse for the 6 Music thing. And I hadn't got to that place whereby I didn't feel like I think the last song we did, I suddenly had a moment. But how did you do that? Because you're a very powerful performer. You go, because what I want to do is I want to go to a place. I want to go to a place when I lose all inhibitions. I want to lose that. Is that somewhere that you go to how do you do this? What do you do? Is there some kind of switch, or is it, how do you do it?
give away my secrets now, Ed.
Oh, come on, share them with the world.
People would say to me, like in the beginning, my brother came to a show of mine when I would play like above pubs. I played one in Camden. My brother came to it. This is years and years ago. It was just me at a piano, kind of Diamanda Galas, just like, ooh. My brother came to one and I was singing all these sad songs and people were clapping and applauding. My brother went, I just wanted to get you off stage and tell everyone to fuck off. Like, why are you applauding? Like, my sister's crying. Like, you're showing so much pain on stage. Why are people crying? It's kind of sick. Why are people encouraging me? And I understood that it was just me at a piano and I was so much more, I think I was braver then in a way, because there was nothing to hide behind. There was just me and a keyboard.
Yeah.
And I had kind of nothing to lose because I was in no genre. There was no kind of scene I was a part of. Just kind of accepted being this weird oddity. And that was the making of me, doing those shows. To a point where I was doing those, people were like, what is this? I think I like it. Do I like this?
Yeah.
I think so. And then I was getting booked to play. I remember I was booked to support Joss Stone and Shepherd's Bush Empire. Again, just me on my piano on the first album, before it was even released. And these poor fuckers, and I felt sorry for them in the audience. They're not expecting someone like me to come out dressed in black and being like, and I can't believe this mad shit I was playing Rachmaninoff piano and just banging
Wow.
it. And then some people, you know, like the Emperor's New Clothes, like someone would be like, boring, fair enough. Yeah. And I would lose people's attention, they would talk. And I remembered so vividly at school, and we had a substitute teacher and everyone was making a raucous noise and all the rest of it. The substitute teacher just sat there quietly until everybody stopped shouting, until everybody stopped making noise. And you could hear a pin drop, and we were like, And then once we'd all stopped, the substitute teacher said, so we'll carry on. And so what I used to do, I learned really early on how to, and this sounds crude, manipulate an audience. I learned how to work with an audience, and I learned to listen to an audience as well.
Yeah.
And it was so important. So what I would do in those moments when it was so loud in the room and no one would listen to me, I'd stop playing and I'd stare at everybody. I'd just stare them out.
Right.
And I'd start singing a song a cappella. The quieter you go, the quieter everybody else goes.
Yeah.
And then they were with me. And I've learned, it's a really weird thing and it's hard to explain, but I've learned how to be in tune with each person in that room.
Yeah.
And I leave a lot at the side of the stage and I go on and I do feel like a completely different entity. Like, you know what you're doing, you're born to do this. Any anxiety I have, any other kind of bullshit, it just goes.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm most alive when I'm there. And that's been the hardest thing of being in lockdown. I've not felt as alive. And I've had to find other ways to feel alive. But it's conviction is like a rat and you can smell it a mile off.
Yeah.
They're going to know if you don't mean it.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And I think that's the best thing. The thing about music is, and the thing I love about this, what we all do is, it's the biggest bullshit detector, isn't it? And it's like, it will kick you up the arse. And music is all about truth. It's all about your truth. It's not the truth, it's your truth. And the moment, like I've deviated, but the moment you deviate from it, that's when the music stops resonating. You have to come back to what your truth is.
You know what I love? What I love is that you're in fucking Radiohead, one of the biggest bands in the world, arguably the biggest band in the world. And yet, you're still like, how do I do this when I...
Yeah.
That's the most beautiful thing. It honestly, that puts a fire in my belly. And it makes me so happy to hear that. It makes, honestly, it really...
Wow.
Quite tearful, but it makes me proper happy to hear that, because it's like, you're hearing it proper honestly though, then, aren't you? Like, how can I make this the best that I can? It's beautiful hearing that from you, Ed. It's really, and it
well,
comes
I mean,
across when I watch you perform. It does come across.
it
Good.
has to be real. It has to be honest. And I think that's why, you know, if you say with Radiohead, this is the thing that, you know, I think people sometimes, you know, people are going like, why aren't you recording? Why aren't you touring? It's because you have to do these things when it feels right. You can't do them because, and unfortunately, you can't. It's this thing that you can't do things necessary to please people. You want to please people, but the first instinct has to be like, is this your truth? And is this? And I think we're so lucky that. I mean, I'm so lucky. I think music is such a humbling thing, and my experiences. I work with you know, I've worked with amazing people, and on my last record, I worked with Flood and Alan Moulder. You know,
I love
and
Flood.
Flood's amazing, right?
It's a
Yeah,
weirdo.
Flood is just, and all the stuff he's worked on, and Alan who mixes everybody, and they've been at it for like 40 years, and they still care so much, and they've still got insecurities about what they do, whether they can still do it. And I think that's the thing about our music. I mean, you know, if you really do it, then it keeps you, because you know, it's like me doing a solo thing. It's like what I'm trying to explain to people. It's like, I don't do this stuff because, you know, Tom's got a solo career, or Johnny, or that's the thing you should do. I was quite happy being a dad. I wanted to become, 10 years ago, I wanted to become a 5 elements acupuncturist, because that's what I was really excited by.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, fuck, I love this. This shit really interests me. And I was, you know, seriously, 15 years ago, I was just like, yeah, Radiohead's good, but I'm really interested in acupuncture. So I was nearly ready to walk. And and it was actually Neil Finn who said to Neil Finn, and Johnny Marr said, anyway, that's another, they said, I maybe you should just reconsider it as because I will do things perversely as well. I'll be like, it's like Eric Cantona when he left United. I'll be like, that's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, I'll just leave Radiohead now and just do something complete. You know, that's not right. But the reason you do things is because you have to follow your passion. You have to follow your, you know, your intuition, your what excites you, right? And we're so lucky because, you know, a lot of people don't have the blessings that we do in terms of, if you start the thing, what you learn as a musician very early on is that you have to follow that path. So you don't, like, I know that how I've seen friends of mine who've had, you know, the jobs, not, you know, really hard jobs, and our jobs are hard as well, but they're not soul destroying jobs, right? They're just, well, maybe, yeah, sometimes, yeah, no, no, it's true. I'll take that back. What am I trying to say? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically,
No, I know exactly what
you
you're
know what I'm
trying to
saying?
say. It's a luxury to be able to make music as a job.
Yeah,
But then that you said something the other week. You said it yourself. You said, you know, I would make music. The unfortunate thing is we would do it even if we weren't paid.
yeah,
That's when we get taken advantage of.
yeah.
Right, because it can be glorious and it can be so enjoyable. I understand exactly what you're saying, Ed.
Yeah,
I understand
and
exactly.
and you know, that I think that is the key of it. When you look back at all those musicians, like who, and the constant thing is like, it's so intoxicating what we do. It's so, you know, it's like, it's one thing listening to great music, but it's another thing trying to being being in the center of making music. It's like it doesn't get any better. And I'm not going to use the usual cliched analogies. It's better than, you know, all those things. It's as good as anything, you know, out there. And
Yeah.
and we're so lucky. So that's, yeah. So yeah.
I think I watched back, so just quick, I watched back some stuff from Six Music Festival. So I had your album forced upon me.
Yes.
My housemate at the time when I lived in London is your radio plugger.
He is indeed.
And
Mr.
I was
Stephen.
like, bloody hell, is he still playing it? What is this? He would always play his bands he was plugging. I never liked
Right.
it.
Oh dear.
And
Sorry.
I was like, shit. And I came in his room one day and I was like, this one isn't so shit. What's this? He's like, it's Ed O'Brien. Who? Oh! I was like, oh, the fit one.
Oh, Come
There's
on,
going to
I'm
be
gonna
some comments here. There's going to be some comments that go, yeah, the fit one. The fit, known as the fit
the
one.
fit one, the
And
fit one, the
and I
fit.
loved it. I loved that. And
Oh,
I immediately it resonated with me. And I was like, there's something about this I really, really like. And then I couldn't see your show at Six Music Festival because my family were down. And I watched it back on telly not so long ago. I just wanted to relive gigs. It was a beautiful show.
oh, thank you. I was reading. I haven't got to that place, but you know, it's work in
Yeah, but
progress.
you don't we do we I don't know if I've gotten there yet. Do we want to get there, or is it like the process and like we'll keep
Well,
trying? Because
I
the
know.
bullshit thing would be like the bullshit thing would be the day you go on stage and you've got no nerves and you think you've got it all down to a T.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
always be a little bit scared.
Oh yeah,
We're
for
always
sure.
trying, you know.
Yeah,
That's all we can do, I guess.
for sure, and be, you know, humbled, and you know, absolutely. This has been. Do you know, it's funny in life. It's like I've been in the studio with Paul Epworth this
I
week.
love Paul. Paul's
great, isn't it? And I'm going to make some music with him, and I had this with him. But when we first connected, like via the Zoom, I made it like I love this woman, and you know, it's like some people you really click with. Do you know what I mean? You have a connection. I'm sure you connect with a lot of people, Nadine, because you're a beautiful, larger than life soul.
You'd be surprised.
But
I'll tell you in private. You'd be surprised.
but I've honestly, on my heart, it's been so brilliant, and you are such an amazing, and we haven't even talked about music because I kind of actually deliberately didn't want to, because I'm sure you talk about that a lot, and this is about two people finding common ground. But your music I think your album is extraordinarily beautiful. I'm going to Rough Trade and buying it on vinyl because I'm making that. It's one of those albums, and congratulations, because it's making so many top tens this year. And you're such a beautiful soul, and your mum must have been and still so proud, and your dad so proud of you. Your mum, who loved the Romantics, has got this incredible daughter who produces this extraordinary, beautiful music. Sorry, but it's, as a parent, it's like, you know.
Oh, bloody hell.
Sorry, but you know, I'm sorry. I am one of these really bad people. I kind of, like 20 years ago, I'd have gone, thanks, Nadine, that was great. But now I'm a real believer. Say it when you believe it. I don't like that. I went to live in Brazil for 8 months. It's like open hearts. You're a fucking beautiful person, an amazing soul, such an amazing musician, and I love you.
You're a superstar. Honestly, I've enjoyed talking to you so much. Thank you.
Should we do this again?
I'd love to.
We'll come and swim in the sea in Margate, in Ramsgate.
Oh, yeah, and one day I'm taking you to Istanbul as well.
All right. All right. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Oh, it'll be bloody great.
The biggest hug.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much love to you, buddy.
So much love to you. Thank you.
Everybody listening as well.
Yeah. Big love to everybody.
Oh, love you, Ed. Thank you so much.
Love you too, Nadine. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Take care, honey.
Yeah. Bye.
Ta-da.
Wow. That was really amazing. I feel very emotional. Strong connection. Wow. See you next week.